Yeah, the lockout's still going. I'm probably gonna stop with that intro for a while because it's not going anywhere anytime soon. I figured today would be a great time to do my Hall of Fame ballot video because I haven't done it in what feels like a few years. My baseball knowledge has gotten better. I mean, I voted Omar Vizquel in my last video about my baseball Hall of Fame ballot. Yeah, we want to forget about that one. Omar Vizquel, not a Hall of Famer. Oops, spoiled it. You know who I'm not voting for on at least one of the guys, but I'm gonna go through all the players, give you my thoughts and opinions on them, and then at the end of the video, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you who are my 10 votes for the Hall of Fame in the 2022 Baseball Hall of Fame ballot. Of course, I'm not a baseball writer, so my vote has no meaning whatsoever, but it's fun. You guys seem to want to know who I think should be in the Hall of Fame. It at least gets a discussion going, and that's really what I want to see in the comment section down below. I'd love to know your guys' opinion on who you think is going to make the Hall of Fame and who shouldn't. Drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it today, as well as subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the content. And last but not least, make sure you're following me on all my social media at GiraffeNeckMarc. Link is in the description. And if you like MLB The Show and video game content, GiraffeNeck Game, links in the description. Been streaming and stuff and uploading videos over there. So there's a lot of great names on this ballot. There's a lot of decent names. I mean, just making the ballot alone is quite the honor. The fact that you can even get your name on here means that there's a consideration that, hey, maybe you possibly even have a chance to be a Hall of Famer. And even getting one vote is quite the honor. I feel like there's at least 10 guys on this list that definitely deserve to be on there. I'm gonna tell you who they are, but we will go through all the players. And first, we're getting it started off with Bobby Abray, who of course played the outfield for the Phillies, the Yankees, the Angels. He had a really nice career. He was an on-base machine, and while his numbers were really strong, I don't think that Bobby Abreu is one of the best outfielders of his time. Therefore, getting him into the Hall of Fame is a little tough. Now, it's weird because Bobby Abreu also did have a little bit of steroid era crossover, and he was very good. And if he was playing now, he would be probably a sick outfielder, one of the top 10 guys in the league for sure at his position. But I just don't think, thinking about the era then and comparing Bobby Abreu to some other players, that he gets into the Hall of Fame for me. Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds is a stud. Barry Bonds is the greatest player of all time. I personally do not care about the steroid thing with him. Obviously, steroids are bad, and I think guys who get caught and suspended for it get punished a little bit more in my eyes. But even then, Barry Bonds was so incredibly good, and I know he wasn't suspended ever, so it doesn't really matter. But he's got the most home runs of all time. I mean, he's the best player I've ever seen play the game of baseball. I think it would be a travesty. I think it would be a disservice to not have him in the Baseball Hall of Fame. So yeah, Barry Bonds, give him a quick check. Barry Bonds way deserves. I mean, the numbers are off the charts. I mean, Bonds finished his career with a 298 average, 444 on base, 607 slugging, 1051 OPS for his career. Video game numbers, 73 home runs in a season, 762, 2,558 walks. Barry Bonds is a stud. And what was he, a 7-time MVP? Don't care about the steroids. Hall of Fame, best player of all time. Next up, we got Mark Burley. And Mark Burley was a very valuable pitcher, but in terms of individual performance, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Like, this is a guy who had value to a team because he would throw 200 innings for basically every single season he played in Major League Baseball. He'd give you like a high 3, low 4s ERA. He was very consistent. Super high floor, low ceiling. I mean, I know he threw some no-hitters and stuff, but Mark Burley was never one of the best pitchers of his generation, but he was definitely undervalued. That being said, Mark Burley to me is just not a Hall of Famer in my eyes. Roger Clemens. I hate Roger Clemens. Roger Clemens is one of my least favorite players. Actually, scratch that. He is my least favorite player of all time. Chase Utley, number 2. I hate Roger Clemens. What he did to Piazza, don't like it. He was on the Yankees and all that kind of stuff. He's the worst. But boy, was he such an amazing pitcher. He is the Barry Bonds of pitchers. Steroids, 100%, just like Bonds. But he's what, a 7-time Cy Young Award winner too, I think, which is like a weird parallel between the two. An MVP, 11-time All-Star, 7-time ERA title, 2-time World Series champion, 354 wins, which, you know, back then wins kind of did dictate a little bit more than they do now, obviously. That is a Hall of Fame stat. He had a 3 RA over 24 seasons, almost 5,000 innings pitched, 4,600 strikeouts. I mean, the list goes on and on. Roger Clemens is one of the best pitchers of all time. 100% deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. As much as I'd love to see him left out, because I hate the man's guts, he deserves to be in there. Carl Crawford. Carl Crawford was a really fun player. He was really entertaining to watch. He ran the bases really well, hit for some high average, and even had a little bit of pop in that bat with the Tampa Bay Rays. He, of course, got those big contracts to play with the Dodgers and Red Sox later on in his career. That's kind of where it, you know, went off a cliff. But when he was with the Rays during his prime, he was really sick. Problem is that the prime just doesn't last long enough. So for me, Carl Crawford, not a Hall of Fame. Prince Fielder's a fun one. Prince Fielder was on a Hall of Fame path, I think, without a doubt, but injuries and then some personal stuff that was going on in his life kind of derailed his career and kept it really short. What's crazy about Prince Fielder's career is that he finished with the same amount of home runs as his dad, which is 319. He just didn't have enough. But those seasons when Prince Fielder was on, he was incredible. You look from 2006 to 2013, Prince Fielder's average years were 35 homers, 33 doubles, and 108 RBIs with a 286 average, 390 on base, 528 slugging, and a 918 OPS. This guy was on a Hall of Fame path, but unfortunately when he hit his 30s, everything started to go south, and this is the Hall of Fame. You gotta have a full, strong career. Playing until you're 32 just doesn't get it done for Prince Fielder, but he was pretty unbelievable. I mean, he won an MVP. Let's talk about Todd Helton. This is a guy who's gonna get a huge boost because of Larry Walker getting into the Hall of Fame, and even before that, I really did think that Todd Helton's a Hall of Famer. He was a guy who played played in Colorado during the 90s and 2000s, so of course his numbers are going to be inflated. I mean, they were not using the humidifier or anything. Those balls were flying out like crazy. But Todd Helton was such a beast that I think he deserves to be a Hall of Famer. This is a guy who put up a really, really strong career, 2,500 hits. While the numbers did kind of dwindle later in his career, he does have that longevity that you look for in a Hall of Famer. And I mean, the numbers that he was putting up in the early 2000s, late 90s, they were sick. I mean, a 372 batting average season, 1162 OPS. I know he played in Coors. Don't really care. Todd Helton, for me, is definitely a Hall of Famer. I understand why people are a little hesitant, but I think that Todd Helton will eventually get in. He was also great defensively at first base. Can't underestimate. And he finished his career with just shy of 400 home runs, which probably would have helped a bit. 316 average, of 414 on base. He walked more than he struck out. A lot of people don't remember that about Todd Helton, is that he walked more than he struck out. 953 career OPS. Yeah, stud. 17 years of play. Todd Helton's a beast. Ryan Howard kind of finds himself in that same scenario as Prince Fielder, albeit Ryan Howard's prime was a little bit shorter, but maybe slightly more dominant. From 2006 to 2011, Ryan Howard was doing some crazy stuff. I mean, he won an MVP with the Phillies, World Series champion, all that kind of stuff, but he was averaging 44 homers and 28 doubles a year with 133 RBIs, driving in 133 a year. That's crazy. 274 average, 369 on base, 559 slugging, 929 OPS. His prime was disgusting, but he fell off really, really quickly. And he was also a little bit of a late bloomer. Really didn't have his breakout until his 25, 26-year-old season. So Ryan Howard was a pain in my side as a Mets fan, but to me, great player, not a Hall of Fame. So Tim Hudson. Tim Hudson was really good. He played 17 years with the Braves, the A's, the Giants. He was, all over those three teams, and he was very, very good. Tim Hudson was a very solid pitcher. I don't want to compare him to Mark Burley because I think he's better, but I think they're relatively similar in that they had immense value to their team because they were out there every 5 days and gave you length and gave you consistent starts and 200 innings a season. While he did have some high Cy Young Award finishes, he's never won it, and I truly don't think that he was ever one of the best pitchers in baseball. And if you look over the span of his career, he wasn't even like a top 10 guy probably during that time. So for me, Tim Hudson, while he was very good, does not get into the Hall of Fame, but he's pretty close. He needed some more dominant years, but he was a nice, very good pitcher. Tory Hunter is a guy I struggle with mightily because Tory Hunter was sick in the field, had a really nice career. He was never the premier center fielder, and again, it's part of the time period that he played in, but that of course does matter. He made sick catches. He was a great hitter. He was an all-around really good player. And to be fair, he continued to have decent play into his mid to late 30s. So he did have a nice long career, 19 seasons, 2,400 hits, 353 home runs, almost 1,400 RBIs, stole about 200 bases, finished with a 793 OPS, 277 average, 331 on base, 461 slug. The defense plus the bat was incredible. He's right on the fringe for me. He's right on the fringe. I'm not sure just yet. Honestly, he's probably relatively in that Todd Helton range a little bit, where they're right on the fringe, but I can't say for sure whether or not he is a guaranteed Hall of Fame. But I think he's definitely going to get a bunch of votes, maybe even mine. So Andrew Jones is the guy that I like to fight for. Andrew Jones to me is a Hall of Famer. The problem with him is that his second half of his career was pretty weak. He only played until he's 35. So he's kind of my Scott Rowland. A lot of people want Scott Rowland in the Hall of Fame, and I'll talk about him as we get going. But Andrew Jones is my Scott Rowland because to me, when you talk about outfielders from 97 to 2007, there was nobody better defensively in center field. And this guy was also still sick with the bat, averaging 33 homers and 30 doubles a season with 100 RBIs and an 850 OPS. So that and possibly the best defensive center fielder of all time, you do that for like a 10, 11 year stretch. That's a Hall of Famer to me, but I understand why people don't think it. I don't know. You watch this guy play and you go, he's something special. I think he should be immortalized in the Hall of Fame. He's my Scott Rowland. I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Another guy that I think should be in the Hall of Fame, but is probably more borderline, is going to be Jeff Kent. Jeff Kent to me is possibly the best hitting second baseman of all time. And if you're not going to give him that, which is completely fair, you got to give him the best power hitting second baseman of all time because he does have the most home runs by a second baseman, 377. And I know he played a little third base and even a little bit of first base in there, but even still, I think he does have the most home runs for a second baseman of all time still. I think it's in like the 340 range or something like that. He won an MVP. He was definitely one of the best second basemen of his time period. I think there's no doubt in that. While he did have stone hands, he was not much of a fielder, and the dude was definitely a jerk. I think he's really good. I think he deserves to be there. I mean, from 98 to 2007, he had an OPS of 902, 301 average, 373 on base, 529 slugging. That's disgusting, and it's not like he was a slouch before that, especially from the second base position, which wasn't a big power offense position for a while. Jeff Kent, to me, I think is a Hall of Famer, but I know that he's on the fringe for a lot of people. Tim Lincecum, man, I mean, two-time Cy Young Award winner. That usually gets you into the conversation. That's why he's on the ballot, but he just simply did not have a long prime. He won those 2 Cy Youngs, had a couple other good years sprinkled in there, but it was really a 4-year stretch of Tim Lincecum being good. That doesn't get you into the Hall of Fame. I love the freak. Apparently, I look like him a little bit, but not a Hall of Fame. And then in terms of Justin Morneau, he was just kind of a worse version of Prince Fielder and Ryan Howard with a similar kind of prime, similar time period, a little bit closer to Howard's length. And then he just had injuries, had the concussions. If you guys remember, like he was very, very good. He won the MVP, but he's not a Hall of Fame. There's a weird group of guys who have won major awards here, but won't be in the Hall of Fame. It's so weird. The mid 2000s is a crazy time for baseball. Joe Nathan's tough. When you look at the leaderboards, he's like one of the top 10 saves guys in all of baseball history. He has a 2.87 ERA for his career, 377 saves, just under 1,000 innings pitched, 3.36 FIP. Like, Joe Nathan was really good. I don't know where I stand with Joe Nathan. I really don't. Because when I think of the best closers of all time, Joe Nathan honestly just never comes to my head. He doesn't. To me, that feels like you'd then put in like K-Rod. If you're going to do that, K-Rod was a better closer, and I don't think that K-Rod's a Hall of Famer. So for me, I don't think Joe Nathan gets in. I do think that there just were better closers during that time. I don't think that he needs to be in the Hall of Fame, but boy, is he close. Big Papi's a Hall of Famer. I think there's no doubt. He's arguably the best DH of all time. He also has a little bit of steroid stuff kind of wrapped around his name because, of course, he was pretty awful with the Twins, and then he got to the Red Sox and was like, oh, I'm really good. But I don't care. I love Big Papi. He's great. He's one of the best players that I ever got to watch, at least from the offensive side. The years that he had in Boston were pretty incredible. 20-year career, 540 home runs, 600 doubles, almost 1,800 RBIs, a 286 average, 380 on base, 552 slugging, 931 OPS. He went out on top. 3-time World Series champion, 10-time All-Star. You can't talk about the history of baseball without mentioning Big Papi. David Ortiz is no doubt a Hall of Famer for me. He's so sick. I love Big Papi. How can you not love Big Papi? I mean, even if you're a Yankee fan, you got to appreciate how incredibly good this guy was. Jonathan Papelbon's also super interesting. I think he's very comparable to Joe Nathan, and I think he was better than Joe Nathan, honestly. He may not have the longevity of Joe, but in the time that he pitched, they're comparable players, and he has 200 less innings. So for me, yeah, Joe Nathan, just, it makes it a little harder to put him in. Papelbon was sick. I kind of forgot how good he was. He finished his career 12 seasons, 2.44 ERA, and 368 saves. Another guy who was definitely a jerk, an absolute, just not unlikable guy, and we remember him for fighting Bryce Harper, but he was pretty dominant with the Red Sox. So he was a really good closer. I don't think he gets a vote from me. Jake Peavy, another one of these guys who's won a major award. He's won a Cy Young award, and he was really good at times, but health was always kind of keeping him off the field sometimes and kept him a little inconsistent. He just wasn't good enough for his entire career, so no on Jake Peavy. And to me, Andy Pettit, if he wasn't on the Yankees, doesn't even really get the kind of talk that he gets right now on this Hall of Fame ballot. Andy Pettit's not a Hall of Famer. His claim to fame is being a part of the Yankees. He was a steroid guy. He got caught, and I just don't even really think he was that good to begin with. There's just nothing about like a 3.85 ERA for a guy who was cheating that screams Hall of Famer to me. Not a Hall of Famer. If he wasn't on the Yankees, I don't even know if he's still on the ballot past the season. I'm truly shocked about this next player, AJ Pierzynski. I know he caught 19 years, but he's just not a Hall of Famer. He was never even close to one of the best catchers in the league. I don't even know if he was one of the top 5 for more than a very short period of time. He's just not a Hall of Famer in my eyes. 2,000 hits for a catcher is impressive, but that's, you know, accumulation. Not a Hall of Famer for me. Manny Ramirez. Here's where we start to have some fun. We hit a couple steroids guys here. But I'm gonna vote for Bonds and Clemens and David Ortiz, all connected to steroids at points. Manny Ramirez got caught, but Manny Ramirez was so good. I'm voting for Manny. I'm gonna do it, or at least I would consider voting for him. And maybe it's foolish, but he hit 500 home runs, 500 doubles, 1,800 RBIs, played 19 years. He finished with a 312 batting average, 411 on base, 585 slugging, 996 OPS for his career. He had some of the best seasons of all time in the 90s. I mean, he drove in 165 runs one year, multiple seasons with OPSs above 1,000. I mean, he went actually from 99 to 2004. He had an OPS of 1061, prime of the steroid era. But while he was god awful in the field, garbage, he's one of the best hitters I've ever seen play the game. Manny Ramirez is a Hall of Famer. And then we got A-Royd, Alex Rodriguez. Alex Rodriguez, as you can imagine, based on some of my other picks, is going to be a Hall of Famer. Again, steroids, we know all the bad stuff. And while A-Rod is a really unlikable guy, he was one of the big jerks while playing. He had 696 home runs, 2,100 RBIs, 3,000 hits, 930 career OPS, and it would have been higher if he didn't, you know, struggle towards the end of his career. But you look at his prime, and I'll even extend it to 2009. You go from 96 to 2009, that's 14 seasons, right? In that time, he hit almost 600 home runs, an OPS at 974. He should have been the shortstop over Jeter for the Yankees, but of course that was never going to happen. Multiple MVPs, 3-time MVP award winner, 14-time All-Star. He's one of the greats of the game. He's a Hall of Famer. Now here's the fun one. It's Scott Rowland. And I know that there's going to be arguments all over the place for Scott Rowland being a Hall of Famer, and I don't care anymore. I know that there's ways to prove that he's a Hall of Famer. I'm not going to deny that. But to me, just based on how I remember Scott Rowland and how he played and all that, he's not a Hall of Famer to me. He just isn't one of the greatest players of all time in my mind, and that's hard to put a guy in the Hall of Fame. I think he gets a lot of credit for continuing his career on into his late 30s, and he had that decent year in 2010 where he had that 850 OPS. Like, that was strong. But there's a lot of years in between there that are so unimpressive. Just didn't play enough. I don't know. To me, a guy who's averaging like 120 games for his career, a season, I don't know. Scott Rowland to me just doesn't jump off as Hall of Famer. I know the numbers could say otherwise, but just how I remember this guy, I don't think of him as one of the best players of all time. I don't. I'm sorry. I know he's got high WAR. I know he's got good jaws, but doesn't do it it for me. Roast me in the comments. I'm ready for it. Jimmy Rollins is just not a Hall of Famer. Won an MVP. It's about it and shouldn't have even really won it that year. He's a good player, but he's not a Hall of Famer. I don't really want to spend too much time on him because there's not too much to talk about. Curt Schilling. I think Curt Schilling as a player is a Hall of Famer. As a person, he's garbage. He's a garbage person, and he doesn't want to be put on the ballot. He doesn't want any votes. So I'm not going to vote for it. As a player strictly, I think he's very good. I think he is a Hall of Famer. But as a person in general, tough to vote for this guy. And hey, he doesn't want to be voted for, so it makes it easier for me. I don't even have to make this decision. We're not giving Curt Schilling a vote. Gary Sheffield, another steroids guy, 500 home runs. Did play 22 years though, and in those 22 years, still shy of 3,000 hits. The 500 home runs used to be a guaranteed in the Hall of Fame, and the 907 OPS is really impressive. I don't think Gary Sheffield gets it for me. I don't. He stayed around forever to get to that 500 home runs, and his years were kind of all over the place, and he did peak in his like 30s. To me, Gary Sheffield, I think I'm gonna leave Gary Sheffield off, but he's close. I can understand voting for him. I'm not against it by any means. I don't think he's gonna make it on my cut. Sami Sosa, on the other hand, I think Sami Sosa, this guy's got a real gripe. Now, yeah, Sami Sosa, steroid user. Oh, it's obvious. It's so clear. This guy stunk for the first 3 or 4 years of his career. And then he got to Chicago, and he was like, wait a second, I'm good. And we know why. But you gotta say that from 1993 to 2004, the fact that Sami Sosa in 11 years hit 537 homers, averaged 45 homers and 116 RBIs for 11 seasons, 285 average, 360 on base, 576 slugging, 936 OPS. He had 3 seasons of 60 homers or more. That's got to be a record. It has to be. I don't know. Don't check me on it, but it has to be. He's drove in 150 RBIs multiple times. Sammy Sosa was sick. Sammy Sosa was awesome. 600 home runs, 878 OPS. I'm gonna vote Sammy Sosa. We love Slam and Sammy. Mark Teixeira. I think Mark Teixeira is gonna be a guy that as time goes on, he'll get more votes. He's not gonna get my vote right now, but there is a world where Mark Teixeira could get some. Was really good. I mean, kind of for the entirety of his career. In 14 seasons, he had 409 homers, 400 doubles, 1,300 RBIs, a 268 average, 360 on base, 509 slugging, and 869 OPS. Doesn't jump off the page, but I bet you somewhere, somehow, you're going to be able to argue that he might be a Hall of Famer. 400 home runs in 14 seasons is pretty impressive. It's an average of 30 and 30 a year for 14 straight years. That's really good. I don't know if he gets in. Actually, I know he's not going to get in this time. He doesn't get my vote right now, but there's a world where Mark Teixeira might gain some votes, and he's definitely going to get some, I think, on this ballot. Omar Vizquel, garbage person, bad guy. Is he one of the best fielders of all time? Probably. I mean, he's won, what, 11 Gold Gloves? A 3-time All-Star. That to me speaks volumes. Omar Vizquel's a 9-hitter, guys. He hit 9th. He's not a Hall of Famer. He couldn't even get to 3,000 hits in 24 years. 2.877 is a great year. He stuck around for 24 seasons. That's value alone. His glove was incredible. We know that. But Omar Vizquel in the Hall of Fame feels wrong. It just feels wrong. He is not one of the best players of all time. His bat was just so bad. So not good. His most plate appearances came hitting second, where he had 7,100. But then he has over 3,000 plate appearances, where he hit 8th and 9th. You can't put a guy in the Hall of Fame doing that. You just can't. I can't do it. Omar Vizquel's not a Hall of Famer to me. He didn't hit for a particularly high average, 270. He didn't get on base. His OPS is 688. OPS plus of 82 for his career. His glove, that's the only thing that kept him around. He's not a Hall of Famer. And then we've got Billy Wagner. Billy Wagner deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He's the greatest left-handed reliever of all time. Billy Wagner was disgusting. 422 saves. Puts him in the top 10, of course. I think it might even put him close to the top 5, if not in the top 5. You look at left-handed relievers, he's by and large one of the best, if not the best of all time. A 2.31 ERA for his career in 900 innings pitched. A whip under 1 for his career at .998. A FIP at 2.73. 12 K per 9 for his career. I mean, there's just no way around it. Billy Wagner was disgusting. Disgusting. He had a K rate of his career of almost 33%. Yeah, unbelievable. Billy Wagner's a Hall of Famer. I can't believe he still doesn't get the votes that he deserves. Put Billy Wagner in the Hall of Fame. That is the guy I will go to war for. Billy Wagner, Hall of Fame. So to sum it up, here are my guys that I'm voting for, my 10 votes. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Andrew Jones, David Ortiz, Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, Sammy Sosa, Billy Wagner. That leaves 2 spots for me. I'm gonna go with Todd Helton and Jeff Kent in my final 2 spots. That's my Hall of Fame ballot. I'd love to know what you guys are thinking down in the comment section below. Drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it, as well as subscribe to the channel if you missed out on any of the content. Follow me on all my social media at GiraffeNeckMarc, links in the description. That's where I'm wrapping up today's video. You guys know the drill from here on out. YouTube recommends you watch this video. This is my most recent upload. Click through those if you have not yet seen them. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow for another video. Bye.